We are.
This is the official Turkey earthquake relief debrief video. So, hey guys, so here with my friend Jarod Richardson. We're here in Turkey, actually up in Antalya, and we wanted to just jump on and do a just a relaxed debrief from our time in Turkey. And I want to just throw this one piece in why we're up in Antalya, because I know I'm going to forget, because we're going to get into everything that happened and how we got here and things that we did, and thank all the people and stuff. But so one of the key things that had a theme that had popped up many times that the Lord spoke was about getting quote unquote tools. Solar audio Bibles into flashlights into S. There's been a lot of key partners in that stuff, but a lot of energy went into making that happen. We actually drove 12 hours up this way to make a key connection with a network that was going to be able to get them to those networks underground, very established, very legit. And one of the texts that I got from this contact was, Sean, do you understand the generational impact that these are going to have? Like, they were so excited to have these tools. We take it for granted, something like this, but you got to remember, a lot of people don't know how to read in that region right there. And then just the multiplying effect that it's not picking up a book, but it's something that people are going to hear, or whole households are going to hear. And we know the word of God doesn't return void. But anyway, I wanted to throw that in. But so here we are. We are coming up to the end of Wave 7. Really Wave 8, because we had the pre-team that came in. And I just wanted to kind of go through some of the stories, kind of how this I'll just kind of set it up real quick. But we had just gotten back from Ukraine. Right. And I remember I had you over for dinner, mentioned, hey, by any chance, would you want to go to Ukraine? I mean, the team was already built. We had tickets built, bought already. And you just said, I was just waiting for you to ask. And then you jumped in. We went to Ukraine. We were back for maybe, I don't know.
It's a really Holy Spirit moment there, too. Like, you were telling me about it like a week or two beforehand.
Yeah.
And, like, I went home and told Laura.
This was Ukraine, yeah.
Yeah, this is Ukraine. I want to go on that trip. But and I prayed about it, and the Lord said, you wait on it. You wait on it.
Yeah.
And you asked.
I asked. That's what you're waiting for, and it happened. Yeah. We had just gotten back from that trip, and I had a planned trip down to Cuba. It was a second trip back down there. Church we've been building down there with Leif and Pastor Zebi in Krakow, and Leanne Goff Ministries, and. Turkey had popped off. I think it was on a Monday. The earthquakes had happened in the middle of the night, early in the morning, and then I think I was leaving on Wednesday. We had already announced. We knew right away we were going on this, and I'm on the plane to Cuba, and I'm going, this is crazy. Yeah. I cannot go to Cuba right now. I know how busy I get when a deployment pops off, and 18 hours a day, just moving people, getting the word out, planning logistics, all that. And I was like, God, you got to get me off this plane. If there's any way, we're literally on the tarmac getting ready to take off. And I'm like, God, if you could break the plane, whatever you got to do, please, I can't, this is impossible.
Lord, please break the plane.
I felt bad because I was with Wade and Christian Plack, but I just knew I was going to be consumed with it the whole time on the ground. And sure enough, pilot goes, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know how to explain this, but this plane is broken. And we turned around. I'm like, I instantly felt embarrassed. I felt like Jonah or something. They're going to throw me off the plane at the at the gate or something. But anyway, got back, and we had told everybody that, hey, we believe we're going to be on the ground 5 to 7 days from that Monday, and you jumped in on the team, and
called
myself.
me on Friday, said, "Can you leave tomorrow?"
Yeah. And that's how it happened. Jordan Danchik, longtime crowd responder, joined us from northern Iraq, and then Garth and Wave One, Beth and Jennifer, and
I get them all mixed up now.
Yeah, no, it's Beth and Jennifer, and they jumped in, and they met us over there 2 or 3 days later. We had some sorting out to do. We had 2 connections on the phone before we left, and one of them quickly rose to the top. Really awesome guy in country.
Yeah.
Just really celebrated us. Just gave us all the information we needed.
Right.
And then that's the first thing we look for, a man of peace, and then somebody who was going to welcome us, get us the resources that we needed, and picked us up from the airport, and even connected us with a place to stay down in Iskenderun. And
a local believer right there in Iskenderun too, to connected us with her.
Yeah. So and that was it. And then we jumped in and ended up meeting some local pastors that we ended up working with. We're not going to say people's names, just that's probably best. We don't know where this is going to go, but started doing distribution with them, packing boxes, helping out.
Right.
And
first day on the ground, packing boxes with the local pastor there in town.
Yeah, for sure. So just make sure you're speaking loud enough so they can hear us.
Okay.
So anyway, we ended up over in Antakya.
Right.
And we connected with another church over there that was, now Antakya, obviously, modern day Antioch. Place was devastated. I mean, what did you feel when you first saw Antioch?
Oh man, it was breathtaking. It just looked like rubble. It looked like a war zone. Just everything laying down, especially certain parts. If you went into the ancient areas where they had a lot of houses constructed of stone that had, been set up right after the last earthquake 500 years ago, 400 years ago, something like that, and just rubble on the ground. Like we pulled in from that pastor's church.
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming.
It was hard to imagine it as previously being buildings.
Yeah. And not just buildings, but these are like 5, 10, 15, 20-story buildings, just pancaked. I mean, I was down in Haiti for that earthquake, and, you drove for, 2, 3, 4 hours, and, 1, 2, 3-story buildings down on the ground, poorly constructed. I've never seen a big city like this. So devastated. And then to look and just see all the floors sandwiched together, what was like maybe an 8-story building, all pancaked on top of each other. And I know you had a revelation when you were just looking at that.
Just looking at those and realizing those layers haven't been touched. Nobody's digging in that, and there's people in there.
We're talking apartment buildings,
just apartment buildings, and you have to kind of remember, put it in your head. This went off at 4 a.m. in the morning, somewhere around there. And
in the middle of a big city,
people are in bed, and people rushed out of there, and just the wake up call to, where you were in that building made all the difference in the world, whether you lived or didn't, and just sheer chance it felt like for these people. Just one building next door stood, it was cracked and busted up, but it stood. And then the building that you were in is just flat, and you're trapped in between floors for days, and there's not enough capability to get to all the people.
I think one thing, for I would say a lot of Americans, particularly for people who haven't traveled much or been out internationally, I think one of the things that happens, with the amount of information that we see and what we scroll, and, we have such a limited attention span, we hear of a place like Turkey and we just think, oh, those people over there, or, you think of, something maybe along the lines of, intense Middle Eastern country, a lot of sand and desert, arid. that was, even for myself, one of the revelations I had, how big and how built up the cities are here. We're talking about massive cities, massive cities. This isn't a developing country. This is a very, very developed country. And, when you see those buildings pancaked like that, all of a sudden you begin to realize, oh, it's not those people over there. Like, this could have easily been me and my family.
Right, and also a very high standard of living here, nice highways, good infrastructure, and to see the people struggling through it is something where you could totally look at that and say, wow, if it happened in my town, and really have a comparative value of going from, a high living standard to today I'm in a tent and half my family is gone and my job is under the rubble and I don't have a car anymore, and just all that in a moment.
So we had about 7 different waves come through, and one of the big things was we got about $25,000 in those torches out. Some of them are still being distributed, obviously. We just brought more in. And we really felt like that was super significant in terms of the impact here. But we ended up getting involved in a couple of different projects. We connected with another local person who really found where the needs were in outer lying areas, out in villages. We were able to put together distribution packs, whether it be hygiene items or food boxes. We did a lot of food boxes, did a lot of mattresses and bedding, built a lot of temporary shelters, a lot of temporary tents at first. We helped build a we built a, what do you call it, a refugee camp.
A camp, a whole tent camp where people were going, all of a sudden displaced from their houses, not having anywhere to go. They needed a place, and the local church down there in Iskenderun had worked out a situation with the government where they could access that land,
which was very unique.
Extremely unique, awesome, amazing opportunity for a church to be stepping forward and loving the community in a sort of an out loud kind of way.
And a lot of other churches pulled together in that as well, under that umbrella. A lot of unity in that. And
we built a lot of tents in there.
And the atmosphere, like I've heard people say it, the atmosphere there compared to the other camps, I mean, there's hundreds if not thousands of them around, encampments, they're everywhere. The atmosphere there is much different in that camp.
And there's a guy who comes down from I think it's Istanbul to help lead it. One of the elders from a church up there comes down to help watch over it. And just one of the things that struck me, and this kind of goes through with all those people, but one day we were working with a tent and it was frustrating. It had rained really badly and they were just lost everything in their life, and now they're sitting in a swamp and these tents don't breathe that well, so it's smelling moldy. I stick my head in the tent and I was like, this is awful. And I went over to him and just to tell him, and I figured, man, this guy's overwhelmed. He's not going to care. How are we going to get this done? And he stopped and he just said, first thing you need to know is we need to make this excellent. These people have been through a lot, and we're representing the love of Jesus in this moment. And we need to love them really well. So whatever we need to do, let's do it. And then we went about setting a plan to fix that tent along with
there's a massive amount of work too. The gravel, the pallets, picking the tents up, getting them out of the water, and then later on,
almost unbuilt half of them. Took all the liners off of them, let them air out because they were moldy. You know? And
then just recently, we just started cutting windows into all of them, which is just
Wave 7. That's all Wave 6, I think, is the one who started it, and
that's huge. So you touched on the subject of love, and I know. that is something that has really risen to the surface.
Right.
I know we got into building
Yeah.
temporary, well, not temporary shelters. They're shelters.
They're shelters.
Call them a temporary home.
Right. They're not a tent. They're a step up from a tent, and they're something that's going to last, depending on how and where it's built and what kind of foundations it's on, anywhere from 5 to 10 years. So it's something that, and if they put more into it, it could last.
Right.
It could last a lifetime. It's it's wood, so they feel safe. There's not concrete overhead. Funny, when we're building those things, it's common for them to come in and feel how heavy the ceiling material is.
Yeah, just to check,
just to see, like, okay, if it happened,
is this going to fall on me and crush me? Yeah,
right,
for sure.
But in that process, the relationships just would go so deep, so fast, and they just said the most profound things.
I'll set it up.
Yeah.
I mean, just the other day, we were out and we're building one of these shelters, and suddenly a truck pulls up. Mm-hmm. And they have a cow like blindfolded. They offload the cow in the street. I'm like, what in the world is going on? They lead the cow down back behind the house that we're working next to. We're building one of these shelters, and suddenly they're slaughtering this cow. And the guy who was butchering says, "We love you. We're so grateful. Us in this community, we butchered this cow for you."
Right.
But when we're sitting there at the table with kind of like the patriarch of that community, as he was feeding us relentlessly, what did he say to us? And I know this is something you heard often.
Yeah, we've heard it a lot of times in a lot of different structures, but one of the things he said, he first started saying, I'm a Muslim and you're a Christian, but I love you. And then
it's powerful.
And then he pulls it back and he says, the translator, we're passing forth this phone back and forth for translation, and he would say, "I love you more than Muslims," and you as a Christian, you guys came to help, that kind of an idea.
Really powerful witness. So what's the saying? Preach the gospel. You use words if necessary.
Right.
And I think that's something that really came through everywhere that our teams went and served.
No, it was. We love you more than Muslims. You love us more than the Muslims. You just like, and this is something. We use the words occasionally. You use words when necessary. Like we're just doing this, and we're sitting around having a meal afterwards, and they're wanting to talk to us. They're the ones bringing up spirituality.
They are
religion. That's not. We're not even initiating that, because just by our nature of being from the West, being Americans, we are Christian, just because, and it's a tremendous witness. It's kind of like we get to use that for our advantage when we're here. We don't have to say much. We just show up and love.
Yeah. Really powerful. To be there in that moment and just suddenly realize this is what it's all about. They will know you by your love.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what the Bible says.
Right.
And just a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
So, another thing I just wanted to bring up, on that first wave that we're on, you, myself, and Garth was there. Jordan was back at the house, but there was maybe somebody else with us. I can't remember.
No, it was just you, me, and Garth.
It was the three of us.
Yeah.
It was about 8 o'clock at night. We just had went to go get something to eat, and that second, not the second initial earthquake, but this was actually this wasn't an aftershock.
Right.
This was another earthquake.
Right.
It was, what was it, a 6.4 or 6.9?
I've seen 6.8 or 6.4, but yeah. It was a big one. Yeah.
We're sitting there, and we're all kind of tired, and we had ordered some food, and there was maybe 30 or so local people in the restaurant. And suddenly you hear this roar. You heard it before you felt it, and then suddenly I'm going, why are my feet moving under the table?
Yeah.
And we just, leave your friends, leave your phones. Everybody just scattered. We got out of the building, but it was really a priceless perspective to see the reaction of the local people, and rightly so.
Right.
I mean, we didn't go through what they went through.
Right. They had went through 7.8 6.8, I think is what it was, and then a 7.
Which is like 1,000 times more powerful on the Richter scale.
Right, and then a 7.4 like aftershock. Like, you know, there's stories of them, the first earthquake hits, they pulled all their people out and they took them to the hospital, and then when the 7.4 hit, the hospitals fell down and everybody died anyway. So just like just awful stories. But they had gone through all of that, and their response in the midst of that 6 point whatever was a heart turning moment for me. Mm-hmm. That was when I was like, oh, this is what they went through. We had one guy jump out the window. There was a door 10 feet away from him, but the window was the choice. Right. And went out. I mean, he went over and he committed. I mean, he hit his head. He was bleeding.
His blood. Yeah.
And there was another lady who had fainted in the main area. And I kind of thought she had like had a heart attack. The way everybody was reacting around her.
There was another woman that had fainted as well.
She had ran and she fainted.
She was
before
screaming
she could get
first.
out the door.
She was screaming for a while first, then passed out.
Right.
But to see that level, how intense the trauma was, it was like a light bulb went off. Yeah. My goodness, like what is going to be the long-term effects for all of these people here? My mind began to spin. How do we begin to address that? Right. Who's going to help with that? And I know there's groups out there and there's local people and stuff, but you know, what we just did in Ukraine, we did these trauma conferences. We brought Dr. Mike Hutchings with us. Jordan came, for people who have been through the war, military chaplains and first responders, police and stuff, pastors. But, I'm really thinking that, that's when I began to think hey, this is a way that we can really support the local community, the church, workers, M's and stuff like that. And, for however long this goes on, and so that's one of the things that we're thinking in terms of, next phase of this deployment. The deployment is pivoting right now. Volunteers begin to wane, people's interest, go on to different things. We've had tornadoes and a lot of what if or what might happen back in the United States. It kind of takes people's attention off of what's going on here. The need is still huge here. Right, it's massive. If
massive.
Anything, people are more desperate.
The local church, they said, they called us, and I've had multiple phone calls since I said, hey guys, I just want to let you know the nature of what we're doing has to shift at this point. The finances, the people aren't there at this point. We need to move into something else. And just like people crying immediately, the local church calling and just saying, hey, you don't understand, this is going to take us a long time to get there. And I don't like the local one of the local church members called and said, I don't know if we can do it without crying. But they had so much respect for us and so much value for us.
Yeah, and that's just thank you to cry responders. Guys, we can't do this unless people show up, unless people willing to put their hand up. And I'm just thinking, Jarod, it was almost like a passing comment, hey, you interested in Ukraine? That led to Ukraine. You came home for a week or something like that, whatever it was, and then boom, you're on the plane back to Turkey. And
haven't seen home since.
And he hasn't been home since. He's been here since the first team.
Yeah,
and
I packed for 12 days.
You packed for 12 days, and it's been a little over 2 months, right? On the ground. Ended up leading teams, and I mean, great job, and thank you so much for being willing to host the teams. That's a lot of work in just itself, hosting people, getting them from the airport, the logistics. A lot of people serving on the back end, all the the ladies, the admin team.
Is absolutely amazing.
But if you've ever hosted M teams, it's a lot of work. A lot of different dynamics. You just get traction, then the people leave, and then another team comes, and also
we had great responders.
Great people. Great people.
I mean, every one of them had a purpose here on the ground. And the way,
cool.
just you would watch people come in and they would feel a little awkward or where am I going to fit in? The next thing you know, they were the ones that were sitting down, making just an incredible connection with somebody, and having those talks about who about who is Jesus.
Over a cup of tea.
Yes, lots of chai.
Lots of tea
We
time.
drank lots of tea.
Yeah, a lot of relationship building. We've come alongside the local congregations and helped to make them shine long term. We're not going to be here long term, but the volunteers, what makes it. And we always hate when we get to this point in a deployment and we go, well, we don't want to leave.
It's a huge part of me that does not want to go.
Yeah, we don't want to leave, but we don't have the numbers of people that we need to consistently keep what we're doing in place. Rented vehicles, rented house. There's a lot that has gone into this thing, and then the giving slows down as well.
Right.
We get it. It's just, it is what it is. And so we look at those things and go, okay, well, the nature of this is changing. So what do we do now?
Right.
And we're praying over that. We're asking the Lord and, talking to our team and families and stuff like that. And just, believing that, okay, well, maybe it's more strategic, and, we come over, maybe it's one trip a month. Or we've also talked about possibly, establishing something long-term, something that looks a little bit more along the lines of a base, and people who have longer-term commitments, like a minimum of 3 weeks, and some that might commit for 3 months and come over. And so we're just kind of like praying through that, because there is still so much need.
There's a ton of need. And
favor.
Yeah, there's a ton of favor, and the amount of times that I heard that they run to help us, and they don't put any weight on us. It's just
that's huge.
That's just amazing.
Yeah,
just
that's
amazing.
really huge. So we're just looking at all of it right now, and just asking the Lord what's next. We have had some conversations with some leaders and some networks in regards to doing some trauma conferences over here as well. We know that's a great way to serve.
Right.
We've built, I don't know, how many of those homes did we build?
Over 10, less than 20, somewhere around 15.
Somewhere in around there. We sponsored a few of those.
Right.
We've gotten a tremendous amount of resources on the ground. I remember the early days, the shopping sprees. They'd be like $5,000-$10,000 shopping sprees up in Kakas or
Koshtas.
Koshtas. We figured out the right way to say it. There's like a little hang down thing on the bottom of the sea that makes you go.
It adds an H.
It adds an H.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all of those guys, we'd come in and there'd be like 10 employees. They just follow us around with shopping carts.
The locals were so excited. And like when we would be at Koshtas, they would load us up, and they would just like, it was just, we'd say thank you for loading up the vehicle, and they were just, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just the humility and just amount of respect that we would come all the way from across the Atlantic to be here and be a part of their recovery was just wow. Yeah. Still, like every time we stop to build a house, they're trying to figure out where you're from, and they start naming off countries in Europe.
Yeah.
And then you say America, and they're just like, I still haven't figured out the full cultural significance of them, but it's a step back.
It is. It really is. Yeah, it's happened for sure. Yeah. So, it has been. I want you to do this.
Okay.
Can you share one significant story, something that impacted you in a really significant way? I know there's probably hundreds, but could you share one story?
Yeah, there's one gentleman that just. There's a few gentlemen who just like, you just sit down, and there's a thing here where men are really strong, and they don't want to like let their emotions down, and they'll start to break, and they'll suck it up, and the story's over. And one thing we learned early on was just to give permission, give permission to be like, it's okay. And I learned two words, chokzer, and I don't know if I'm saying them right, but I say them well enough they understand, and they say, and it means very hard, is all it means.
Right.
And all of a sudden, their walls break down. And they
You're
start telling us-
validating them.
Yes,
You're validating their emotions, their
it's
feelings.
okay right now for you to feel really rough. And one gentleman, we were building a house for him, and he had a house that was barely standing, and we were he'd go in there to make tea or cook us dinner or something like that, and he had invited us in. We're sitting around inside this house, which is just it's really rough that they'll do that, but they don't want to surrender themselves to sleep inside these broken houses. But we're sitting in there and we're having tea, and he's feeding us, and slowly as the night goes on, he starts telling us about what he's been through, and he tells a story. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to go there, but he tells a story about being with his family under the rubble, and they didn't make it. His wife and his son, and he's showing us videos of his son dancing and just how sweet and amazing he is. I think he might have been 6 or 7 years old, and really identifiable for me. I have a 7-year-old son or 8-year-old son, and he was in there for 3 days, and he's expressing like how big the box of area that he was in, and how he had this little thing that he was able to drink, and it's just like that story strikes me so hard, not just because of him, but because of how many times I heard it in some variation or fashion. And us just being there for that moment, and just all the love that he felt in that one little moment, and able to like connect with us and share with us and process that one little bit of that trauma, to get it out loud, and talk about losing his wife, and talk about losing his son, but just being there, through that is just, it's such an honor to be there with him with that. There's one other moment that I'd share too, is just we were working on a soup kitchen up in Antakya early on, and that night that we had the 6 whatever that you and I were there in that restaurant, the next morning I went up to where we were working, and we didn't do any work that day. It was just the spirit was too heavy. Everybody was just so sad. The church was already severely in trauma, to the point that it was kind of hard to get things done.
They weren't able to function.
Right, and we were begging them to take a break. And
we built the soup kitchen.
Right, we built a soup kitchen there in that church, and then the walls fell down on stuff. The food was just scattered all over the place, and it was no longer a viable option, like, to build a soup kitchen there. And just sat out there on that porch with the pastor, and just cried with him, and just like so much loss and so much devastation, and like it's hard to express what the moments are shaped like, but there's a level of relationship where we both were excited to have this new future for them, and then just in a snap it was taken away. It was taken away, and him just coming to the reality that nothing's happening here. We're not doing this here anymore. Like, maybe somewhere else, but not in this building. And to put it in perspective, they had lost their house. We had already moved them out of their house because it was condemned, and rightfully so. And we were in their existing church building that they were meeting at had fallen down, and the provision of the Lord was amazing. That this other church had been started 6 months prior to the earthquake, and all the superstructure was up, the main beams and everything, and they had just started with filling in the sections on the interior walls, and the superstructure was still okay, but all those interior walls were gone after that 6.8, and it was almost more than I could bear, at that moment.
Yeah. Well, I know we were trying to come alongside of them, take a burden off of them. Just never seemed like it got going. The earthquake came. Eventually, we were able to send them finances, your guys' donations, specifically earmarked so they could take a break, get out of that environment, get rest, and I think they're going to be doing that pretty soon. They needed it back then, but you guys know this. When you encounter somebody where disaster happens in your own hometown, you carry it differently. And imagine being a church leader where there's loss, you've lost your home. Very hard to detach yourself. You feel the responsibility, you feel the guilt to even leave. I know they were really struggling with that, but we did send them money to be able to take a break, and so.
Yeah.
But
and still, there's a relationship there. We've been up there to help them pack food boxes and just go up and sit down and have a chai with them when we're building in that area. They're great people, and just lending our spirit means a lot more than we realize.
Yeah, when you see how leveled that city is, just to sit with somebody, in the midst of not having the answers. We can't make this all go away. Just the ministry of presence.
Right.
It's
There's no
huge.
words. There's nothing that we can do really besides open our hearts and just sit with them and talk with them. And build those relationships.
Yeah, and guys, this is what these days look like. These things are going to increase, unfortunately. And people will rise to the occasion, and we'll reach the harvest in the midst of it. We'll continue to respond. We'd love for you guys to join us, be praying with us, what the future of our response looks like in Turkey, whether it's really strategic teams coming over at strategic points, real planned trips, maybe once a month, or whether it's planting a flag in the ground over here and selecting a leader and setting up some sort of outpost or base with a little bit of a longer term vision. We don't know. We'll do whatever the Lord leads us to do. But I do want to say this, Jarod, thank you so much for saying yes at the dinner table to Ukraine, and then saying yes to Turkey. You brought your family over here. Your son Oz is here with you now. What an incredible experience for him. But you've poured yourself out. You've helped host the teams. We wouldn't have been able to even deploy if we didn't have a deployment leader, and that's what you stepped into. You stepped into that DL role. You've been only great.
Had great leaders though. I had good people before me to show, hey, this is how it is.
Well, it was funny even before all of this happened.
Oh my goodness!
Just hey, I just started telling you about deployment, things, how it works. Just kind of felt. I had no idea that it was going to end up looking like this, but you did great. You're great with people. You love well. You're really cool under stress. You've just done a great job.
Thank you.
And I do want to say, Jarod and his family, they're really looking to jump in full time as well. You said it this way, this is what I want to do. When your life lines up and this is what you're made to do, your talents, your giftings, your callings, all come together in the context of mission. It's just like life is perfect.
Right.
But
I do have to say, the people we had on the ground here, the responders that came out, made it tremendously easy to do my job. The people the locals that we connected with,
for sure,
tremendous. Wow. I mean, what amazing people. And we made teams so fast. You come from however many people on an airplane, they land here, and we were team within 2 to 3 days.
That's
every
beautiful.
time.
That's great leadership though too. It really does take great leadership and great people. And that's awesome. But I do want to say this and give you guys the opportunity. Jared's trying to figure out how to go full time. If you're looking for a place to support, look up Jarod online. Maybe there's a link underneath this video. We'll see if we can do that. But they're looking to go full-time support. You could raise full-time support with Cry. We're looking for full-time staff, full-time deployment leaders. I mean, guys, this stuff is increasing, and we need people, and we need talented people to be able to do it. His heart is there, his family's heart. I mean, months and months ago, your wife came back. Where was it? She came back from Ukraine, and she was like, I want to do this full time, Well, the thing is, you can,
Right.
and it really, you can really see the momentum on your guys' life as
Right.
well to lean into this.
Yeah.
But it does take support to be able to do it. People
does.
go, some people stay, and I could just say that this is really great ground. But we know we can't.
Join the team.
Yeah, join the team. We know we can't do any of this stuff without you guys, without cry responders, without people getting trained. Just a little update. I mean, oh my goodness, the opportunities for trainings and the international doors that are open up. We just got asked yesterday to do a training over in Egypt, training over in Norway.
Right.
Got invited over to Sweden, got invited back to Ukraine for leaders gathering. I mean, guys, there's just a lot of international doors, and that hasn't been the normal thing. And I'm just saying something is happening in this moment. There is momentum. Maybe you watch that video from Daniel Lim and I up on top of St. Peter's Church in Antioch. It was this prophetic moment where the prophet Agabus stood up and predicted a famine. It was the first biblical response to crisis. Really incredible, but it's really, I just really feel like the Lord is bringing a new apostolic layer on us to multiply. In the last couple of weeks, bases, affiliates, and chapters has come up. We don't know what this looks like, but I know it takes people and it takes finances to do all of this stuff. And we come out on these international deployments, and it's just like Ukraine. We just lay it all out. We just leave it all on the field. We spend all the money to help all the people. And, that's kind of the moment that we're in. So we're just waiting to see what the Lord will do next, And
I will say, all those international opportunities, like the quality of those opportunities. This isn't like,
oh my goodness,
hey, Sean, come talk here. This is like, this is like let's make a world-changing difference in these regions, and the availability of the people's hearts on the ground to have a whole nother level of connectivity with Jesus and the church.
Totally.
It's phenomenal. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then back home on the home front, just the same thing. I felt like we were going to come back from Turkey, going to get up back home on the ground, and it was really a time to bolster up and strengthen the national deployment base camp.
Yeah.
And there's some things that I'm dreaming of. There's an opportunity for us to really expand our deployment capabilities with this incredible base camp that could house all of our responders, air conditioned, showers. It's like as soon as something happens, we can immediately mobilize. It's not like we have to wait for a location, which sometimes takes days. Guys, what we specialize in is getting on the ground really quick. Anyway, there's tremendous opportunities, but we feel a real urgency. As much as we feel the need here, we also feel an urgency back at home to get back on the ground, to strengthen that. Even to gather some resources in the Charlotte area as well that people can fly into. It's a great hub. We don't know what the Lord's doing, but it's definitely a time of multiplication of leaders, which this went phenomenal. Great job, man. I just want to say thank you so much for all you've sacrificed. Thank you, Cry Responders, for coming over. Everybody who's sewn into this. And we just did a huge drop today of these tools, flashlights that are going into an underground network into Syria, which is just incredible. I'm just seeing multiplication. I'm like, I stand around, I'm going, wow, this is incredible, God.
Yeah.
It's incredible to watch and see and to be a part. Like,
be a part of this much momentum in this time. Like it. If you haven't traveled, maybe you don't know, but like the momentum out there is insane.
It's incredible.
Like the potential for the gospel to just grow something new everywhere you plant a seed is just it's
wild.
Amazing. It's
wild.
Amazing.
Well, thank you again. Thank you guys. God bless you. Hope you had the opportunity to watch. Thank you for watching. And we will. I'm heading home tonight, getting on a 3 a.m. flight. You're going back to the deployment for a couple more days. He's going to close it out. We're going to bring everything back home, bring the people home, and we'll see what God has next. But thank you guys. Thank you for your prayers, all your support. remember, support Jarod. Maybe become a monthly supporter for him and his family, so we can get him
Yes.
full time, and that would be absolutely wonderful. But I know there's more of you out there as well that need to jump in a more significant way.
Yeah.
God bless you guys. Thank you, Jarod.
Thank you.
All right.